Why is it hard to draw what we see? Even with a reference, our drawings can end up looking nothing like the subject. Is there anything we can do to make our drawings more accurate? Actually, there is. In fact, there's science behind it. Welcome to part 4 of my Drawing for Beginners series, everyone. I'm Artifacts. Now, let's take a look at why our drawings don't look like the real thing, and how we can fix everything with an easy drawing technique. First, why is drawing accurately so difficult? Well, in 2009, a group of researchers used eye tracking technology to better understand the drawing process. They tracked eye movements of participants while those participants looked at and drew random shapes. They discovered that when viewing a subject for the first time, we actively look all around it, we compare things, and we pay special attention to its more interesting parts. But something very strange happens when we try to draw that same subject. We stop really looking at it. The red lines here show how each participant just looked along the outline as their hand drew it. This is likely due to motor constraints when drawing, but it's extremely hard to keep proportions of our drawing accurate if we don't look around the subject to compare everything. Thankfully, there's an easy fix. The first thing we should do is adjust our drawing position by limiting how much we turn our head back and forth. Ultimately, we only want to move our eyes when looking from the subject to the paper and back for better accuracy. This is why artists frequently use easels, but not everyone has access to these. So just make sure your subject is as close to your drawing surface as possible. If you draw on a flat surface and you're looking at a reference image, consider putting that image right next to your paper. These minor changes can make a big difference in your final drawing. Now let's learn how to draw more accurately using an easy drawing technique known as construction. This technique sets up guides that help us maintain proportions, and it's about learning to see the simple shapes in things like triangles, circles, and squares. For instance, this dog is sitting in an unusual pose for us to draw, but we can simplify things by first outlining his basic shape. I see a triangle, so I'll begin with that. You may notice I'm using the extended tripod grip through most of this, with my fingers close to the middle of the pencil. Now, the dog's head doesn't come to a point, so let's draw a small guideline here to mark where the top of his head will go. Alright, now let's start finding simple shapes within the body. While we're focused on the head, let's draw a circle for the skull up against our guideline. If you're having trouble figuring out where to begin with your shapes, I recommend starting here with the head. That is, if your image has a head. Okay, continuing on, you can see a squarish polygon shape that makes up the muzzle, so we'll connect that to the circle we drew for the skull. Next, the ear here most closely matches a triangle, and you'll notice the top of the left side angles in slightly toward the eye. Angles are just as important here as the shapes themselves, so make sure you consider looking for those too while you draw. If we continue working down the body, we see a basic neck shape, and we can use the outer triangle to make sure we place it correctly in our drawing. For instance, the right and bottom corners come close to touching the edges of our outer triangle, but they don't quite touch those edges. Make sure you do these types of comparisons with all your shapes as you draw them in. Alright, the large body shape is another four-sided polygon, and we already have the bottom and sides of the triangle to guide us, so let's just draw the top of it here. Then I'll refine the right side a little because I can see it's more straight up and down. And for my final shapes, I'll draw in triangles for the legs. The right leg is on the corner of the outer triangle, so all I need to draw is the angled line. And the left leg is a little bigger, and its bottom right corner touches the left corner of the right leg here. Now you can really start to see our dog come to life, and we only use shapes that are easy to draw. Best of all, this construction drawing technique will start us in a much better place as we continue to flesh out the drawing, because the foundation will always be there for us to reference. By the way, don't be afraid to add as many guidelines or shapes as you'd like to help you along the way. Alright, we can now continue the drawing by modifying these guidelines as we look back and forth and pay attention to the final details. For instance, I'll adjust the triangle shape of the ear a little by redrawing some lines at more accurate angles. I'm also applying slightly more pressure now because I'm more confident with these final lines and I want them to be darker. Every once in a while I'll erase guidelines to clean up the drawing as I go. For some of the inner areas I just use hatching or back and forth shading where larger areas are darker. When I'm comfortable with the base sketch I've laid down, I grab a 2B pencil and make important areas like the eyes darker for increased focus. I'm also using the darker pencil to shade in the background, which really adds dimension by bringing the dog forward. To finish the drawing, I'll spend time correcting things that look a little off, but thankfully most of the elements are in place because of the construction I did up front. Well, now you have a great technique to help you tackle any drawing. Unless you've drawn something hundreds of times or you use different styles of sketching, you'll probably use this technique most often. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.